What's good, y'all? It's Pod.cannion. I'm back with another reaction video. We have Teddy Slump, and this is Japan loves this anime. America hates it. And this is Bungo Stray Dogs. Now, here's the thing, right? I keep on telling myself I'm going to watch this show. I still haven't watched it yet, y'all. So it's like I know there is like more than one season. So here's like one of three things that Teddy's probably going to do because this is an hour long video. So he's either going to go through the first season. Like, I highly doubt he's going to go through like the whole series. So I feel like this will be a good recap of the first season to get me like intrigued because I'm seeing like I saw the first few episodes and like I'm seeing the plot. I'm messing with the plot, but I guess where I'm at, the episodes still feel like episodic. Like, they're taking you like with each character one by one to sort of like let you get to know each character type shit. So I feel like I just haven't gotten to the point where like it really gets you. You know what I'm saying? And with me, like, I want to be like fully immersed when I am watching something. So it's like just the time that I have had to watch it. Yeah, I'm giving myself too many excuses. This will hopefully intrigue me enough to watch it. It's an hour long video, so you know what I'm saying? If you've seen it, this will be like a good like reminiscent for you. If you haven't seen it, this is gonna be just like me, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna see why Japan loves this and America hates it for some reason. But and just why it's a popular anime at all, you know? But yeah, if y'all like the video, like it, subscribe if you're new. All we do is chill over here and yeah, let's see what Bungo Stray Dogs is
What's your
about.
take on the situation?
Well, I know what it's
I'd
about,
say she's
sort of.
sexy as hell.
Not
I
helpful.
remember Teddy Swamp.
The reception of Bungo Stray Dogs has always perplexed me because it feels like this show should be way more popular than it actually is. At the time of me recording this video, the series currently has 5 seasons made up of 61 episodes in a movie.
I was right. Okay, more than one
Meaning that
season.
Bungo has already touched way more content than your average anime will ever get to see in its lifespan. The fact that
Right.
this series keeps getting greenlit for new shit means that somebody's watching it.
So it's still going on. See, I thought this series ended and I just needed to binge it. So that means there's more for me to watch. Cool.
Shit, after 5 seasons in a movie, I think it's fair to assume
And
that a
a
lot of
movie.
people are watching it. And so if Bungo Stray Dogs is supposedly such a popular anime, why the fuck is nobody talking about it? My first instinct is to assume that Bungo is simply more popular in its home country of Japan than it is in the West, and honestly,
That's what I
this
thought.
is probably the most likely answer as to why you don't hear that much Bungo discourse as an English-speaking anime fan. With
Why can't you stay organised?
Iffy.
I've experienced
I
this myself,
think I've
and it's
seen
called
like a
chronic
couple of
impulse
people who
control,
I've
where you
seen like
prioritize.
talk about
that
this
said, though,
regularly.
this begs the question of why Bungo
I just
seems to
haven't
be
watched
so
it yet.
sorely lacking in popularity around these parts. You see,
Alright.
Bungo has all the makings of a super popular anime series here in the West. Cool fights, cool
Like,
powers,
it looks
cool
good.
story, hot girls, hot guys. That's low-key all you need to blow up, if we're being honest. And Bungo has all of these
It kinda
qualities in
is.
droves. I promise you, if Bungo had more clout, my boy Dazai could go hoe for hoe with the best of them, bro.
I've seen some people fan over this man right here. And the first, like, I've only seen a couple episodes, but the first one, he was like, yeah, he was like drowning in a lake or whatever, and then this man was like, oh, nah, I was trying to die. Like,
Well,
no,
I'll
I was
say it, bro.
trying to die.
Dazai will pull more Twitter hoes than Gojo if he was dropped today. I'm sorry, bro.
High
Somebody
key,
had to say
high
it.
key.
Look
I'm
at
not
the
gonna
MC,
lie.
Atsushi
Wait.
and his dynamic with his
Yeah,
emo
high
foil
key.
character Atagawa. Shit, bro. You're looking at one of the best enemies to rivals to teammates dynamics
Oh,
I've ever seen
snap.
executed in anime. And that's no small feat, because do you know how often this exact trope gets executed in anime? I love Bungo Stray Dogs. It's one of the few anime that I genuinely become more excited for every time I hear a new season is announced. And so today,
Say
ladies and
less.
gentlemen, as we come into the first video of 2025, I think it's finally time that I play my role in spreading the gospel of Bungo
Gotta
to the
spread it.
masses.
Let
I've
me
been wanting
know
to make a
something,
video on
'cause I
Bungo
watch
Stray
it.
Dogs for basically as long as this channel has been a thing. And so, yeah, without any further ado, I present to you Studio Bones' 2016 not so hit, but kind of a hit, but really should be more of a hit anime, Bungo Stray Dogs.
Is this season 1? That's
In
really
the
what I'm
grand
trying to
scheme
figure
of
out
battle
here.
anime like Bungo Stray Dogs, your main characters tend to fall into one of
It's
two
looking like
categories.
season 1.
Category 1 main characters live relatively normal lives until the events of their series
That's a
kick
goat
off.
right
In other
there.
words, they're usually
This
just
is
a
the goat
dude
right
living
here.
life until they have a traumatic and or life-changing experience that will forever alter the course of their existence. Category 2 main characters, on the other hand, their lives are just ass off rip. In fact, a lot of times their
Denji.
lives are
Facts.
ass from
Man, this is one of
before
my favorite characters.
rip.
Okay,
I don't know if that's a term, but Type 2 MCs don't have the luxury of a normal childhood. They don't have the luxury of happy days to look back upon when times get tough. Type 2 MCs just spawned into some bullshit and
Yep,
gotta
they
deal with said
spawn
bullshit
into
until the
bullshit.
writers decide to turn their circumstance
Another
around
goat.
at some point in the story. The main character of Bungo Stray Dogs, a young boy named Atsushi Nakajima, he might be the Type 2 of all Type 2s, bro.
Type 2
This
of all
nigga's
Type
life is
2s?
fucking buns. When the story kicks off, Atsushi, who has a meager 15 years of life under his belt, is so fucking hungry that he's fantasizing about last week's leftovers. You see,
Yo, tell me what, bro. I'm not gonna lie. If you know, you know. If you in like a struggle type of scenario, and you trying to go to sleep, and you just gotta imagine the food like that. That's gonna give you just enough, just enough happiness to just
was just
hope.
recently kicked out of his orphanage with nary $1 to his name. And so after going a
Yep.
week without any type of access to food, Atsushi is about to do what people do when they go an entire week without food. Atsushi is about to die.
Yeah. Until he sees. Well, should I spoil it? Yeah.
So Atsushi, he's obviously not in the best state right now, thanks to, the fact that he's literally dying due to the lack
this
of
is a
food.
Hello
Me
Fresh
personally,
ad.
I can't relate though, because thanks to the sponsor of today's video,
Yep, HelloFresh ad.
HelloFresh. Hey, I've been eating good, bro. At the time
sorry,
you're
y'all
watching
gonna
this
get this
video,
ad.
it is at least mid to late January of 2025, meaning that statistically speaking, you have probably given up on your New Year's resolution by now. First of all, lock in, bro. You got this. But second of all, I've actually been able to stick to my resolution so far, and part of the reason I've been able to do this is actually because of HelloFresh. You see, one of my New Year's resolutions, apart from uploading more consistently, has been to cook more food at home. To be more specific, I'm trying to really reduce the dependence I've developed on one particular bright red food delivery service app that shall not be named. Now in December, I had actually started dipping my toes into HelloFresh thanks to them sponsoring my first Kimonozme vid. And after about a month of using them for my dinners at this point, I can genuinely report back and say that HelloFresh has been absolutely carrying my New Year's resolution, bro. Like, it would simply not be possible without them. Where's my phone so I can actually get the proof? I had to check my stats real quick, right? But let the record show that in the month of December of 2024, I used the Red app a grand total of, and I'm not making this up, 22 times.
Ready to get the day
I
over with.
have concluded a very fragile truce with Sigismund, and if anyone...
No, for real.
However, so far in January,
agree.
thanks to having the convenience of tasty meals like the HelloFresh Big Batch Beefy Lasagna Soup, which, I'm trying to think about how I can display this to the camera without spilling the soup. All right, we're gonna...
Yes, sir. I'm going to see you in
Yeah.
the slide.
Oh, no. Okay, here's what we're gonna do.
All right.
There we go. Yep, you see it? Money shot?
All right, y'all. I am sorry.
cool.
I think my
But
camera's
if,
at
you
like
know
a
what I'm
whole
saying?
different
If he
angle
didn't
than where it
convince
was
you at that
before.
point, there ain't nothing I can
Atsushi,
do.
who is an orphan, was
Back to
just
being
recently
poor.
kicked out of his orphanage with nary $1 to his name. And so after going a week without any type of access to food,
You an
Atsushi
orphan.
is
You
about
got
to do
kicked
what
out of the
people do when
orphanage?
they
That's
go an
nasty
entire
work.
week without food. Atsushi is about to die. Now,
Yeah.
that flashback that I just showed you of Atsushi getting kicked out of the orphanage, I want you to remember that flashback because
It's
we
gonna
will be
come back
witnessing
later.
that flashback many times throughout the course of this video. But flashbacks
Really?
aside, in the present day, Atsushi is coming to terms with the
Yeah.
fact that if he doesn't want to die, he's gonna have to steal some food. Now, Atsushi is a better man than me, right? Atsushi doesn't want to steal food even though he's literally on death's doorstep. Me personally, you let me go over a day without food and see if I don't hit the most unjustified lick on your local Wendy's, bro.
Oh my
I'ma go
God.
ahead and eat some whole new
No,
shit,
for
bro.
real,
I'ma be the
like,
first nigga to walk out of
I'm
Wendy's
not gonna
with the
lie,
days
them
quadrupled,
hungry
but
days.
anyway, out of pure desperation,
That's hard.
Atsushi finally commits
Octuple
himself
stack.
to thievery, stealing
Lock
his
in,
resolve
nigga.
to do so and declaring that he's gonna mug
Time
the next
to rob
person
a
that
guy.
he sees pass by. The first person to pass by is on a motorcycle. Obviously, he can't steal from that guy. The next person, or group of people, rather,
Not
to
stealing
pass by
from
is a
them.
literal military task
Not
force.
stealing from
Again,
them either.
Good luck trying to steal from those niggas.
I'm
The
saying.
third person to pass by, he may be the most peculiar pedestrian yet. The third
He-
passerby is
about to die before you.
The first two groups of passerbys. The third
He
passerby
got his feet
is
up.
a single man
He did
drifting
have his
along
feet
the
up.
river. He
I was
falls
like,
down
what?
and drowning. Atsushi goes to save this drowning man because, I mean, he's an anime MC. He kinda
You
has
gotta
to
have
risk
to.
his life for others. Like, it's low key in the job description.
It
But
is
when
in
the
the job
drowning man
description.
finally comes to after being rescued, he's rather disappointed that he had been saved from drowning.
Yeah.
This man right here, as many of y'all may know, is Osamu Dazai, the secondary main character of Bungo Stray Dogs. Dazai is
Now, if I'm correct, I could be wrong, but doesn't he like eventually just turn into the main character because people don't like the other guy?
mad
I
that
could be
Atsushi
wrong.
had stopped his drowning because Dazai's weird little anime character gimmick is that he's obsessed with the idea of
The crows.
self despawning from the GTA map, if you know what I mean, which is also a reference to the IRL Dazai.
Oh,
Whatever, because eventually, as they're going back
that's
and forth,
kinda interesting.
Dazai hears Atsushi's stomach grumble, and he's like, "Damn, Brody, like,
wasted all that
are
power.
you good?" Atsushi explains
Wow,
that he
that's
hasn't eaten
stomach
in days, and Dazai's like, "Damn, that sucks.
That's tough.
I don't have my wallet though, so." You
Yep.
know, kind of sucks for both of us. Fortunately for Atsushi, though, one of Dazai's co-workers, a dude named Kunikita, pulls up at that very moment. And so without consulting Kunikita first, Dazai agrees to
remember him
take
too.
Atsushi out for a much-needed bite to eat.
Said it's on him.
On Kunikita's dime, of course. Cut to said bite to eat, and Atsushi, Dazai, and Kunikita are all at this little mom-and-pop restaurant where Atsushi is finally getting to chow down on the tea on
Yeah.
rice leftovers that he had been
It'd be
fantasizing
like
about
that.
earlier.
Poor
After eating his
people,
fill,
my
which-
nigga, you serious?
Yo, that little nigga
Yeah.
can eat. But after eating his fill of tea on rice, Atsushi
Low-key,
asks
I
his
might
two
eat
elders
some
what they
too.
do for a living, to which Dazai replies by explaining that they're detectives. Atsushi's like, detectives? Okay, that's pretty cool. And Kunikita interjects, adding on the fact that they aren't just any old detectives, they're super detectives that are
Super
responsible for handling the
detectives.
supernatural cases that go beyond the scope of what the
Silhouette's
police can
kinda
handle
hard,
on
I
their
can't
own. Now,
lie.
Atsushi, in his head, he's like, wait, supernatural detectives? I've heard rumors about these guys before. Like, I've heard rumors about a supernatural detective agency where
He's
all
like-
of the members have some sort of special ability. But then he looks back at Dazai and
What did he say?
Kunikita, and he's like, oh, hell no, bro. These two dysfunctional weirdos
I'm
are the
saying.
super detectives that I've heard so much of the rumors about.
I like the
No way,
animation.
bro.
It's
Like,
funny.
it just can't be. Atsushi decides to dig a little further, asking the two detectives about the job that they're currently deployed on right now. And our detectives respond by explaining that they're currently in the process of trying to track down a tiger. Atsushi's like, you said a tiger? And Dazai's like, yeah, we've been getting reports
you.
about this tiger that's been going around the city and ransacking shit. And so we're trying to hunt down this tiger so that we can put an end to its rampage. But
Right.
hearing this, Atsushi starts acting mad suspicious, bro. He's like, oh damn, that's crazy. Anyway, thanks for the food. I'm going to head out now. But before he could scurry along, Kunikita grabs him for
You're
questioning.
who they're
Both
looking
he
for,
and Dazai
Bob.
picked up on the
You're
fact
who
that
they're
the
looking
boy
for,
had started
bud.
acting mad weird. Dazai's like, hey, bruh, you're acting a little strange, my boy. You got any leads on this tiger that you want to tell us? And Atsushi proceeds to have another flashback to getting kicked out of the orphanage before explaining his relationship to the tiger. Atsushi explains that
at least if you watched it already,
the past month, he had noticed that a man-eating tiger had been following him wherever he went. Like, he would always see the tiger out of the corner of his eye, and he just felt like the beast was constantly stalking him. He would always see the tiger.
That's tough. Yo, that's a crazy detail. It's him because it's attached to his shadow.
Tiger out of the corner of his eye, and he just felt like the beast was constantly
That's a nice detail.
Like, interesting. And
that's
when's
fire.
the last time you seen this tiger? And Atsushi's like, shit, about 4 days ago maybe? Kunikita cross-references that info with the case info that he has written down in his notebook. And sure enough, the case info matches Atsushi's eyewitness claim in both timing and location. Dazai's like, oh, word? Say less. Atsushi, let me borrow you real quick. I'm gonna use you as bait to lure out this man-eating tiger. And as he's saying this, he's like handing this folded piece of paper to Kunikita. Atsushi responds, he's like, hold on, bruh, I didn't agree to being bait. Like, what type of shit is this? But after that nigga Dazai throws some bands his way, he quickly changes his tune and he decides to accompany Dazai to go lure out the man-eating tiger. We cut to that night, and Dazai and Atsushi are waiting in like this warehouse that they plan on using to ensnare the man-eater. Atsushi is starting to get a little nervous because, you know, he's about to come face to face with the tiger that had been tormenting him this past month. But as more and more time passes with no tiger in sight, Atsushi's nervousness is replaced with confusion, and he's starting to wonder how Dazai even plans on luring out the tiger in the first place. Dazai, who's just sitting there casually reading in the dark, bad for your eyes by the way, like, get a Kindle. But Dazai, who's just sitting there reading, is like, don't even worry about all that, my boy. I have a feeling that our little tiger will be showing up sooner than you think. Atsushi at this point, he starts to get mad. He's like, hey bro, my life is in danger and you're acting way too chill right now. Like, I need you to tee up, bro. And Dazai's like, hey bro, watch your mouth. But also, relax, because believe it or not, the tiger's already here in the very warehouse with us. As Dazai's talking, Atsushi looks back at the full moon that's risen behind him, and he suddenly starts transforming. These fluorescent blue beams of energy spiraling out of his body. Dazai goes on, he's like, I've dealt with a lot of people who are gifted with special abilities. Some ability users can control their abilities, others, like yourself, have no idea that they even have abilities. At this point, Atsushi is transformed into like a giant blue tiger. And Dazai's like, if I had to guess, I'd say that your were-tiger ability is probably the reason that you were kicked out of the orphanage. No longer in control of his predatory instincts. Pause. No longer in control of his predatory instincts. Tiger mode Atsushi proceeds to lunge at Dazai, but Dazai, being the cool-ass nigga that he is, proceeds to hit the smoothest weave moves I've ever seen before holding out a single finger to stop the tiger mid-lunge. Dazai explains that his ability, no longer human, is a nullification ability that allows him to cancel out other abilities via contact. And immediately after he explains this, Atsushi shifts back into his human form and passes out in Dazai's arms. Dazai's like, oh hell nah, I'm not about to be hugging on unconscious teenage boys in a warehouse at midnight. And so he drops Atsushi, and as Atsushi is passed out on the ground, recovering from his were-tiger shenanigans, Kunikita pulls up with the other members of the detective agency. Apparently, Dazai had secretly told Kunikita to secure the perimeter of the warehouse on the note that he had given him earlier. And after explaining to Kunikita that Atsushi was actually the tiger that they had been looking for, Dazai goes on to say that he wants to grant Atsushi a spot in their supernatural detective group, the Armed Detective Agency.
Transform your newsletter into its very own mobile app and allow your readers to install it.
Right?
The next day, Atsushi wakes up in a small little studio apartment that Dazai had accommodated him with as part of his new detective agency benefits. The apartment isn't much, but having a place to lay his head plus some steady pay is leagues better than what he had to his name the day prior. And so Atsushi is just grateful to have anything at this point. Not long after waking up, Atsushi gets a call from Dazai claiming that there has been an emergency that he needs to help with immediately. And upon going to investigate said emergency, you can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes while I say emergency. But upon going to investigate said emergency, Atsushi discovers that Dazai had gotten himself stuck in a trash can because he had apparently read that doing so was a viable method of self-despawning from the GTA map.
Self-despawning.
If you know what I mean. After freeing Dazai from the trash can, the two of them talk for a little bit, and Atsushi, still kind of shaken up from last night, is like, look, Dazai, thank you for the offer to be a part of the Armed Detective Agency. I really appreciate it, but I don't think I'm a good fit for your guys' agency since, I have no control over my ability. Dazai is
That's where training
good,
comes
bro,
in.
no biggie, but you're gonna need another job if you want to survive, and so let me introduce you to my boy that can hook you up with some new shit that's a bit less supernatural. As Atsushi and Dazai are going to meet this so-called recruiter, they run into Kunikita, who also happens to be out and about as well. And after a few more straight man, funny man shenanigans between Kunikita and Dazai, Kunikita suddenly locks in and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we need to head back to the agency. There's a bomber that's taken a hostage back at HQ. The three of them head back to the Armed Detective Agency HQ to see how they can deal with the aforementioned bomber hostage situation. And, to make a long story short, this entire situation was actually organized by the president of the Armed Detective Agency, a man named Fukuzawa, to see if Atsushi had what it takes to be a member of the agency. When it came to the actual strategy part of the test, like trying to figure out how to take down the bomber, Atsushi was fucking buns, bro. Like, I low-key think he was about to fail the test. But when it came to the part of the test that was meant to test his moral character, Atsushi, quote-unquote, sacrifices himself by jumping on top of the bomb, Steve Rogers style. And so the president, after seeing this noble display of self-sacrifice, gains enough respect for Atsushi to let him into the agency as a certified employee. Now, at first, Atsushi is still a bit hesitant to join the agency, right? He's like, I don't know, man. Gaslighting me into thinking I'm about to blow myself up is a bit crazy. Like, is this really a workplace that I want to be at? And Dazai is like, shit, you can join or you cannot join. But if you decide to not join, 1, run me back my apartment, bitch ass nigga. And 2, I'm finna call the military on you and tell them that you're the were-tiger. Obviously, Atsushi doesn't want either of those ends to come to fruition. So from this point moving forward, Atsushi is officially a full-time salaried member of the Armed Detective Agency. Now, if you've ever had to work a day in your life, you'll probably agree with me when I say that most jobs are only as tolerable as your coworkers are, right? Like, the environment that your coworkers and managers create can make or break your whole experience at any given job. I'm not going to sit here and say that working at the Armed Detective Agency is a bad job, because honestly, it seems like a pretty decent gig, especially for a broke 15-year-old orphan. But with that said, though, holy shit, Atsushi's coworkers are fucking insane, bro.
Yes,
During
they are.
Atsushi's first full day on the job, he and a few other agency members play a game in which they attempt to guess the jobs that everyone had before joining the agency. Tanizaki and Naomi, the two agency members that had role-played.
Yeah, I was thinking about Dazai's when they had this episode. I thought it was going to be a later revelation, though. I didn't think they were going to reveal it later that episode.
It is the bomber hostage duo are actually brother and sister, and Atsushi is able to correctly guess that they were students before joining the agency, since, I mean, he probably just guessed their ages and went from there, to be honest. He then goes on to guess that Kunikita was a public official, which isn't a bad guess given his personality, but it turns out that Kunikita was actually a math teacher, which, yeah, that definitely tracks. When it comes time to guess what Dazai did, however, Atsushi is unable to get to the bottom of it, and come to find out, no one in the entire history of the agency has been able to guess what Dazai's previous job was to this day. As Atsushi is throwing random guesses at the wall and hoping that they stick, Tanizaki gets a phone call from a potential client, and so they all head back to HQ to meet up with this client. The client is like this blonde woman, so, of course Dazai has to lock in. But the client basically explains that she thinks that there are smugglers running an operation near her workplace, and she's requesting that the Armed Detective Agency look into it and gather evidence. Seeing as though there's seemingly nothing supernatural about the job at hand, Kunikita assigns Atsushi to doing the stakeout, and to mentor/oversee Atsushi, he assigns Tanizaki and Naomi to tag along. Before they take off, Kunikita pulls Atsushi aside, and he's like, oh, by the way, he pulls out this little picture of like a Hot Topic looking ass nigga, and he's like, if you see this dude, run for your life. He works for the local mafia, aka the Port Mafia, and yeah, you do not want to get tied up with the Port Mafia. You do not have that type of XP yet, bro. Atsushi thanks Kunikita for the fair warning, and at that, he, Tanizaki, and Naomi take off to go handle the stakeout mission. Cut to the emo nigga that we were just talking about, and yeah, this nigga's name is Ryunosuke Octagawa, and Octagawa is currently in the process of heading to the local police station to to murder the local police.
Okay.
Basically no reason. I'm not gonna lie. Seeing bro walk up to the desk that has his wanted poster taped to the front.
That's nasty work. I can't lie.
Easiest introductions for a villain that I have ever seen in my life. But after murdering the 2 police at the front desk, Octagoa proceeds to blow up the whole police station because, sure, nigga, fuck 12. I guess. Cut back to Atsushi and them, and Atsushi is currently in the process of coming to the unfortunate conclusion that the 2 siblings that he was teamed up with have a pretty intense sibling complex. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this complex because
it's anime shit.
It is by far the most cringe aspect of...
It definitely is cringe. That's some shit you just got to take with watching anime. You just got to
Bungo Stray Dogs, but... yeah, it's there. The 3 junior detectives follow the blonde woman to the location of interest until they finally realize, a bit too late, that they're being led into a back alley. After cornering them in the alley, the woman pulls out a phone and calls Octagoa. She's like, "Hey, boss, we got him." The moment the detectives hear the name Octagoa, they start low-key panicking because they do not want that smoke. And after Octagoa confirms that he'll be there in 5, the blonde lady, who works for the Port Mafia, pulls out the dual Uzi loadout and she lets them Jones rip on our unarmed detectives. Now, Naomi's brother complex must be absolutely OD because without a lick of hesitation, the girl takes those Uzi rounds to the back do that for me. Her brother. After seeing his sister fall before him, Tanizaki tweaks out and he activates his ability, Light Snow, which allows him to create illusions over a small range of space. And following his disappearance into the illusion, Tanizaki suddenly pops out from behind the blonde woman and starts choking her out with his bare hands. Unfortunately for Tanizaki, though, before he could put the blonde woman out, Octagoa pulls up and stabs him through the back. And so, now Atsushi is the only member of the armed detective agency.
Yo, these type of pictures, like right before like an anime crash out, are like, oh shit, I'm fucked. Like the just zooming in on like the middle of their forehead. Like, I know it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, this is serious, but I can never take these shots serious, bro.
That isn't down for the count right now. Octagoa's ability, Rashomon, gives him the ability to manipulate his clothes, kinda like Best Jeanist or something. But after slapping the blondie for almost killing the merchandise, Octagoa turns his attention to said merchandise, who we quickly find out is Atsushi. Apparently, the were-tiger is commanding some pretty hefty bounties on the superpowered black market, like $50 million type bounties. And so the Port Mafia had sent Octagoa and the blondie to capture Atsushi so that they could sell him to a still unknown buyer. Atsushi, hearing that he was indirectly the cause of his co-workers being hurt, proceeds to have another flashback of getting kicked out of the orphanage. And this flashback inspires him to try to fight back against Octagoa. At first, to no avail. Atsushi ends up getting his leg chopped off by Octagoa's Rashomon, and getting amputated inspires yet another flashback to the orphanage. See what I'm saying? How constantly this nigga flashes back. And this flashback causes him to transform into the were-tiger and regenerate his leg in the process. Octagoa and were-tiger Atsushi start running a 1v1 phase, the 2 of them being decently well matched with their respective abilities. At some point, Blondie tries to get into the mix, but she ends up needing to be saved by Octagoa since she really wasn't ready for that smoke. But come to find out, the were-tiger that was attacking Blondie wasn't the real were-tiger. It was an illusion created by Tanizaki, and the real were-tiger is currently lunging at Octagoa, trying to catch him off guard. Octagoa creates like this spiked hand out of his Rashomon, and he gets ready to crash with the were-tiger once again, but at the very last second, Dazai pulls up out of nowhere, and he cancels out.
Protect your wealth by spending physical gold, not paper money that grows weaker by the second.
Both of their abilities, thus delaying their mutually assured destruction to another day. Turns out, Dazai snuck a bug into the blondie's pocket when he was doing his flirting earlier. And so when the mission went south, he was already tapped in and ready to come to his co-worker's defense. Octagoa at this point is like, hey, we may have lost the battle today, but on everything I love, the Port Mafia is gonna get that were-tiger. And Dazai's like, what's up then, Octagoa? You know where we stay, bro. You know what the armed detective agency be on? Like, come see what's gonna happen. Come spin. Octagoa looks back at Dazai and he's like, you know, Dazai, you're talking real crazy considering that you're someone that switched up on the gang. And come to find out, Dazai's previous job, the job that no one had been able to guess earlier, was being a mafioso. Dazai is an ex-member of the Port Mafia. Now, you may be wondering about the status of Naomi and Tanizaki, seeing as though they both just sustained life-threatening injuries from their run-in with the Port Mafia. Well, I'm glad to report that even though they don't have the ability to regenerate their injuries away like Atsushi does, they do have access to the Port Mafia's healer, who, thanks to her ability, is able to patch them up good as new. We don't know exactly how this ability works yet. Like, we don't know exactly what this woman is doing to produce such drastic healing effects, but what we do know is that the detective agency's healer, whose name is Dr. Yosano, she derives great pleasure from healing her patients.
Yeah, I'm like, that look is
kind of seems to be a very BDSM-like sort of way. So,
alright.
Yeah, that's pretty fire. The next episode of Bungo Stray Dogs is what I like to call a flex episode. A flex episode is essentially an episode of anime that has the sole and exclusive purpose of showing us how much stronger one party is over their opposing party. This particular flex episode is a bit different. We meet this Port Mafia task force called the Black Lizard, which is essentially like a Port Mafia hit squad. They have an ability user, they have some assassins. You know, the show does a pretty good job making us think that the Black Lizard is like an actual, genuine threat to the armed detective agency. Spoiler alert. They are not. To save time, I'm not going to go through this whole episode in detail,
didn't they get like low diff?
Just involves Atsushi running away in order to quote-unquote protect his co-workers. But at the end of the episode, we find out that the Black Lizard is simply not on the armed detective agency's level. And they end up literally getting thrown out of the headquarters window after being on screen. Like, yeah, it's pretty bad, bro. Oh yeah, also add another flashback to the counter because...
Of course.
Would it really be an episode of Bungo Season 1 without an uncalled for flashback? Yeah, I don't think so, bro. The next episode kicks off with the armed detective agency cleaning up the mess that they made while putting belt to the Black Lizard's ass. As they're putting in a group effort to clean up the office, Atsushi notices that there is one singular employee who's doing literally nothing while the rest of them are busting their ass. We go on to find that this dude's name is Ranpo Itagawa, and the reason that Ranpo gets special privileges to do what he ever wants is because Ranpo is essentially
where I got left off at. Or like, I know I've seen this episode. This feels like... This is where I said the episode started getting episodic. Because, they flexed, showed a little bit of his powers. And then I think next episode with the teacher guy. Who, like... I'm not going to say it because he'll probably show
brains behind the operation. Like, he's the brains behind the armed detective agency. Rampo's super deduction ability grants him the power to break any case put before him at a superhuman, almost cartoonish level of speed. He is the main reason that the armed detective agency can even call themselves a detective agency. Kunikita ends up excusing Atsushi from cleaning duty so that he can go see Rampo in action at the murder scene that he's going to. And when we cut to said murder scene, we see that Rampo and Atsushi are there with the local police force as they're attempting to figure out who murdered a lady that had been found floating up the river early that morning. Now, the lady who had been found floating up the river, she's not just any old lady, right? She actually has a direct relationship to the cop that was put in charge of the investigation, as she was his subordinate on the police force before dying. Also discovered floating up the river, like midway through the evidence gathering portion of the investigation, is none other than Dazai, who was once again trying to drown himself. And yeah, for some reason, no one really questions it when Dazai starts helping out on the case, and so, you know,
why not?
Anime type shit. But as the chief investigator and his other subordinate are struggling to find any leads in regards to who could have committed this murder, Rampo steps in and he's like, yeah, y'all kind of suck at this whole investigation thing, and so whenever y'all are ready to, like, actually solve this case, just let me know so a real brainiac can step in and bust this case wide open. Now, the chief investigator, he doesn't take too kindly to Rampo's ego, right? He's like, shit, if you think you're Mr. Hot Stuff, go ahead and try to solve this case right here, right now, bro. Like, the floor is yours. And Rampo, immediately after receiving the legal green light, is like, damn, it's about time. I thought you niggas would never ask. Give me a minute max, and I'll have this case solved for you.
Give me 60 seconds.
Put on his glasses, which is apparently like the activation of his ability. And moments after those spectacles touch his face, he's gotten to the bottom of the mystery, and he's pointing an accusatory finger at the chief's second subordinate. Now, at first, some of the investigators present believe that this is actually a possibility, right? They're like, yo, shut the fuck up. Somebody come get this fraud off of the crime scene. But it isn't long before Rampo's deduction is proven true, and the culprit ends up becoming his own star witness by attempting to crash out at the last moment. to no avail. Now, the second subordinate being the twist villain, I'm not gonna lie, it's a mid-twist at best. Like, if you watch the full episode, you can low-key see it coming from, like, a mile away. And so I'm not even gonna go in depth about, like, how the crime went down, because they do have this whole flashback thing with, like, the two subordinates being in love or whatever. It's alright, but, like, the actual coldest twist in this episode is actually a twist involving Rampo himself. At the end of the day, after everything is settled down and the culprit is taken in, Atsushi, Dazai, and Rampo are all walking back.
If you're struggling with getting pro vocal mixes, let me show you something that might help.
Spoiler,
It's called
he doesn't have
Xbox,
powers,
and it's
he's
by
just really
far
smart.
the fastest
to the office to, I don't know, clock out or something. But as they're walking back through the city, Atsushi is talking to Dazai, and he's like, man, Dazai, that Rampo sure is something, huh? Like super deduction? Yo, that's kinda busted. Dazai responds, he's like, yeah, nah, facts. Super deduction is kinda crazy, I won't lie to you, but you know Rampo doesn't actually have an ability, right? Atsushi's like, the fuck you mean Rampo doesn't have an ability? I just watched them solve an entire murder mystery in like 19 seconds. And Dazai's like, yeah, about that. So I actually tested it out by touching him earlier while he was using his quote-unquote super deduction. If that was an ability, it would have gotten nullified by my ability. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that nigga just be raw dogging these cases off pure intelligence. But then he warns Atsushi. He's like, with that said though, all of us at the agency, we all kind of just role play like he has an ability so that he feels like he's a part of the team. And so, yeah, don't tell that nigga that he doesn't have an ability, or else, I don't know, he might have like an identity crisis or some shit. Now, apart from Atsushi and Dazai, Kunikita is by far the most present character in the first season.
This might be the last episode.
The next arc is kind of like the Kunikita arc, so to speak. Like, yeah, we've met Kunikita, we've seen him in action a little bit, but in this arc, we really get to know Kunikita, and more importantly, Kunikita's ideals. You see, Kunikita, Dazai, and Atsushi are all working
I remember the book. That's why I'm like, this might be the
episode. Of missing person incidents in the city of Yokohama. The three of them start off by going to visit this anonymous informant that Kunikita has been in contact with. And when we finally get to this informant,
I remember this episode.
That informant is like this young dude locked up in a basement warehouse with like a bunch of servers and PCs and shit. He's basically like a young hacker type individual. Now, it becomes pretty clear off the rip that Kunikita's relationship with this informant runs a bit deeper than your typical informant-interrogator relationship. Like, their relationship seems a lot more personal and familiar than what you'd expect. It's almost paternal in nature. When Kunikita sees the boy, he's like, you know your pops would be rolling in his grave if he knew that you were a cyber criminal. And the boy retorts, he's like, first off, don't talk about my dad. But second of all, this is why you get no hoes, Unk. You got that big-ass stick up your ass. After a bit of bickering back and forth with Kunikita, the information broker gets down to business, showing Kunikita pictures of the victims and revealing to him that he found data on the servers of someone called the Azure Messenger. Now, this name, the Azure Messenger, actually carries a certain level of significance to both Kunikita and Mr. Hackerboy. Basically, a while back, there was a terrorist called the Azure King that Kunikita spearheaded the effort to defeat. However, instead of letting himself be captured, the Azure King blew up an entire building with himself in it in one giant self-destroying blaze of glory that would probably even make Dazai shudder a little bit at the sight. One of the investigators, who was an unfortunate casualty of the Azure King's final attack, was the father of the information broker, whose name is Rokuzo, by the way. And ever since Rokuzo's father had passed, Kunikita has tried to step up as somewhat of a father-uncle type figure in his life, partway driven by the self-imposed guilt that he holds for kinda sorta being somewhat responsible for the Azure King blowing himself up in the first place. After receiving the leads from Rokuzo, our three detectives head back out to go meet up with the next informant who can hopefully bring them another step closer to solving this mystery. The second informant is like a taxi cab driver who had apparently driven for multiple victims that had gone on to disappear mere days later. The taxi driver ends up bringing them to this abandoned hospital on Kunikita's request, and as the three of them go inside to investigate this hospital, they soon go on to find this back room of the hospital where a woman is currently in the process of being drowned in a cage filled with water. Fortunately for this woman, whose name is Nobuko, Kunikita and them arrived at the very last moment to save her before she drowned. But unfortunately for all the rest of the non-sexy women hostages that were being held in the other room room down the hall, our detectives were too caught up on Nobuko's cleavage to realize that they were even there, and so, yeah, they end up getting gassed before the armed detective agency can even come and save them. Now, at this point, our detective gang plus Nobuko end up having to retreat back home for the night because, I mean, Dazai says it's to avoid the poisonous gas, and at first I wanted to believe him, but then the next day comes along and we find out that Nobuko spent the night at Dazai's crib, and so it's like, nigga, we know your game, bruh. Like, you are not slick, my boy. But besides finding out that Dazai caught some Nobuko cheeks the night prior, we go on to find out that Kunakita's picture is now published in the newspaper, and he's basically being presented as like the public face of failure, since the press somehow got leaked security footage of him failing to save the other hostages. My boy Kunakita, however, is too much of a dog to get perturbed by such menial matters. He has a terrorist group to stop, and so later that morning, he heads out with Atsushi and Dazai in order to meet up with the taxi driver again. Now, to make a long story short, our detectives basically find out that this taxi driver is like halfway guilty when it comes to these kidnappings. Like, he's implicated in these kidnappings, an accomplice, if you will. However, the mastermind behind these kidnappings, the Azure King, is still unknown. And furthermore, the cab driver's dumbass made the mistake of kidnapping a Port Mafia affiliate, and so... yeah, the streets are looking for him now. Immediately upon revealing the full scope of his situation, some Port Mafia shooters pull up and start lighting up my boy's taxi with some Tommy guns. Now, realistically, everyone in this taxi should have at least been tagged right here. Like, that was a lot of bullets, bro. But somehow, no one in this car ends up hit by a bullet, and our 3 agency members decide to split up, leaving Kunakita to handle the Port Mafia. To fight the Mafia, Kunakita activates his ability, Dopo Poet, which allows him to create any inanimate object that he writes in his notebook, given that said object is about the size of the notebook itself. And after creating a flashbang to handle the Port Mafia NPCs, a big-ass black figure slices the entire taxi in half. And yeah, in case you couldn't tell from the big-ass wave of spatially enhanced cloth, the boy Octagawa has officially pulled up on the scene. Now, for all intents and purposes, this fight right here should be an absolute mismatch by every stretch of the imagination. I mean, when it comes down to it, Octagawa's ability just washes Kunakita's ability in every possible category. Let's not kid ourselves right now. With that said, though, because of his somewhat lackluster ability, Kunakita has way more fighting and tactical expertise than Octagawa. And so even though he gets overwhelmed by Octagawa's raw power at first, he's ultimately able to leverage his tactical experience to outsmart Octagawa and force him to retreat while Atsushi and Dazai are turning in the taxi driver to the cops. Next morning, the armed detective agency has an emergency meeting due to a message that they received from the Azure Messenger. The Azure Messenger is basically on their James Bond villain ship, bro. They're like, I've planted a bomb somewhere in Yokohama City that's gonna go off at sunset. Find it if you dare.
Possibly.
This was me, struggling to keep up with posting.
Well, no, this is still the same episode. He's figured out. They're gonna figure out who it is.
President Fukuzawa speaks up. He's like, everybody listen up. Nigga got mad aura, right? Whole room goes silent. He's like, everybody, listen. If we can't defuse this bomb, then we have no right to call ourselves a detective agency anymore. And so with that said, now more than ever, I need you niggas to lock in. Everybody in the room stands up on like some sir type shit. And with nothing else to discuss in the meeting, they all break up into separate groups to go try to find this bomb. And by extension, the Azure Messenger. Kunakita pulls up on Dazai as he's having a fancy afternoon date with Nobuko. Apparently, Dazai had been busy quote-unquote tending to her mental state since she was still the victim of a kidnapping. But while talking to Nobuko, Dazai had been able to find out that the woman's ex-boyfriend had recently passed, which called Rampo for some much-needed guidance. Here comes Rampo on the other end of the line, right? He's like, damn, you niggas fucking suck at detective work, by the way. Like, I just want to let y'all know that. Like, do I have to carry y'all in every mission? And Dazai's like, look, bro, we get it. You're the GOAT. Now, could you please stop self-glazing and help us figure out where this bomb is at? Rampo is like, all right, say less. It's at the fishing shop. Like, he literally solves it that fast, bro. This nigga is fucking insane. As the detectives are driving to the Yokohama City fishing shop, they slowly start to piece together why the Azure Messenger will want to place their bomb near the fishing shop in the first place. Basically, the fishing shop is located near a port with a bunch of natural gas and oil refineries. And so if the bomb were to go off in this location, the explosion would be even more devastating than usual since, you know, both oil and natural gas are highly flammable. The detective agency ends up contacting a bomb as if they didn't already have enough bullshit on their plate at the current moment. Kunikita's call was from Rokuzo, who, through his hacker skills, discovered that transmitter equipment had recently been delivered to an abandoned warehouse. Atsushi's call was from Rampo, who had somehow deduced his way to a similar conclusion. Dazai's call, however, was from President Fukuzawa, and Fukuzawa basically tells him that the taxi driver had been found dead in prison with these mysterious glowing numbers on his hand. Now, at the moment, none of our detectives really know what the deal is with these numbers, but they do know that they need to head to this abandoned warehouse in order to hopefully find a way to put a stop to this bomb. Upon all the way until your number hits 0 and you die. Now, this on its own is kinda busted, right? But it's also low-key balanced because the user of this ability, Nikita, still can't disarm the bomb. Meanwhile, upstairs in the bomb's transmitter room, Dazai is facing a mismatch of his own as he's fighting this big brolic-ass nigga that has no ability. The thing about Dazai is that he has no hands. He's carried by his ability and his wit. If he's fighting someone that has no ability to nullify, well, he's kind of cooked. As both of our detectives are getting washed by their respective mismatches, they both come to the mutual realization that if they just swap enemies, they'll have the mismatches in their favor.
That's literally what I was thinking.
He uses Dopo Poets to create a grappling hook. He and Dazai switch enemies. Dazai nullifying the number ability the instant its user tries to activate. A clone of the broken key with his Dopo Poet ability. That's actually pretty clutch, I'm not gonna lie. And with the clone key, he's able to turn on the transmitter and disarm the bomb before it blows Yokohama off the map. Now, once again, I'm gonna fast forward through the whole mystery reveal section of the arc because, I mean, I can't even say it was mid in this case. The Azure Messenger reveal was actually pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, but it would just be way too much yap to go through the reveal detail by detail, and so, yeah, watch the show. But long story short, Nobuko's deceased boyfriend was the Azure King, and Nobuko herself. But Nobuko agrees to meet Kunikita, Dazai, and Rokuzo at the abandoned hospital in order to turn herself in. So what did he
have to do with this? Wasn't he...
Nobuko did not come to this hospital to turn herself in. Immediately upon entering the hospital, she lets 2 shots rip at Kunikita. Luckily for Kunikita, Rokuzo, like the W-mans that he is, knocks him out of the way and takes the shots for him. Now at this point,
he just dies?
About over for Mr. Hackerman, right? Rokuzo was cooked, 2 shots to the body. But just before he goes to dap up his pops in heaven, Rokuzo gets his get back and slays Nobuko with Dazai's gun, leaving the Azure Messenger dead in a crimson pool of blood on the floor. Now at this point, it's been a good little mini Azure Messenger arc. Like, the extent of his usefulness during that arc was literally just the fact that they used his phone to call Rampo. But hopefully, this next arc, which features my GOAT, Dr. Yosano, gives Atsushi a lot more burn than the previous arc, where they basically just transferred his MC role to Kunikita. It's also worth noting that there's this whole subplot that starts around this point in the story where Dazai goes missing and purposely gets himself captured by the Port Mafia. I'm going to be skipping that subplot for the sake of this video because this subplot is actually set up for the Dazai's past arc, which is the beginning of Season 2. And once...
okay, so... I'll still have to watch that section on my own, but this will probably be the wrap-up of Season 1. Which, yeah, I totally got the details of that wrong. I don't know why I thought it was the son, which it was, when it was actually that girl's older boyfriend. Holy shit. See... That's why I knew I had to rewatch this. And you know, like when you start watching the show, then you feel like it's been too long to the point where like you practically have to rewatch it again to like make sure you got everything. That's where I'm at with this. But no, this got me intrigued. Now I'm definitely tap in. 16 minutes left. I'm not gonna lie, I have been vibing with this. Like, this is a good type of video. If y'all like these hour-long anime reviews, y'all let me know something, because I might stack up on a couple of these too, especially if it's like anime that I've seen before, because then I can just talk about it, because I don't get to talk about a lot of the anime I've seen, but I have seen a lot, so that can like, I'm plotting out loud when we can.
Again, this video is only covering Season 1. But trust me, bro, as cool as Dazai being kidnapped by the Port Mafia sounds on paper, It's really not, bro. Like, it's literally just him being chained up in, like, a basement and talking shit for, like, 3 episodes straight. But back to my goat,
Really?
Dr. Yosano. So
How can
far,
they make that
we've only really
interesting,
gotten
bro?
a brief introduction to Dr. Yosano. But in this particular arc, after a regular shopping outing with Atsushi suddenly turns into a Port Mafia terrorist attack, we finally see Dr. Akiko Yosano in action, and we begin to understand a little bit more about the doctor, or at least how her healing ability works. We actually don't really get her backstory until, like, season 5. Amazing.
Damn. Okay. At least that gives us, like, more to learn about each character. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like 4 seasons removed from that, so yeah. So let's give a little bit of background on this terrorist attack. Basically, as Yosano and Atsushi are taking the subway home after a rather extravagant shopping spree, a man's voice suddenly comes over the train's intercom system, and he's like, "Hey yo, test, am I live? Alright, cool. Watch this." Boom! All of a sudden, an entire train car explodes, leaving the passengers that were riding in the train car dead on impact. The terrorist who's responsible for this train car massacre is this bowl cut guy right here, Motojiro Kaiji. Kaiji's ability, Lemonade, grants him immunity to bomb explosions, but this ability only works if the bomb in question is in the shape of a lemon. It's a very strange condition to balance out an otherwise solid ability.
What the fuck? Wait, because I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I'm a little bit gone, so my processing may just be a little bit slow. I was thinking, okay, he's immune to bombs, but he's only immune to bombs if they're shaped like a lemon. One more time.
Motojiro Kaiji. Kaiji's ability, Lemonade, grants him immunity to bomb explosions, but this ability only works if the bomb in question is in the shape of a lemon. It's a very strange
type of power is that?
Solid ability. After hearing the first lemon bomb go off, Atsushi and Yosano split up to find the terrorist, with Yosano taking the front of the train while Atsushi brings up the rear. Now at this point, Atsushi and Yosano both encounter their own separate Port Mafia goons, thus leading them into their own separate battles. Yosano, at the front of the train, ends up running into Kaiji, who literally just bombs her on sight. Like, she was honestly cooked the moment she walked through the door. It's actually pretty sad when you think about it. But Atsushi, on the other hand, ends up running into this young girl who's fitted up in, like, this red and gold kimono. Because Atsushi is trying to talk to this girl, trying to warn her about the literal bomb threat that's on the train. The girl suddenly receives a phone call, and upon answering the phone call, we hear a man on the other end commanding her to use her ability to kill anyone that attempts to escape the train. Now this girl right here, her name is Kyoka Izumi. Kyoka's situation is a bit strange in more ways than one. And in a lot of ways, Kyoka's situation with the Port Mafia actually mirrors Atsushi's situation with the Armed Detective Agency. You see, like Atsushi, Kyoka is an orphan. However, instead of getting lucky like Atsushi did and ending up in a normal orphanage, well, being at an orphanage isn't particularly lucky, not normal, but, you know, relative to the things that can happen to anime orphans, it could definitely be worse. But as opposed to ending up in a normal orphanage like Atsushi, Kyoka ended up in the clutches of the Port Mafia, where she and her ability were quickly honed for the purposes of Port Mafia assassination. Now, Kyoka's ability, Demon Snow, is another one of those Bungo abilities that starts off cool, but then gets severely nerfed by its activation conditions. You see, Demon Snow allows Kyoka to summon what is essentially a stand, right? Like, she can summon this swordswoman, phantom sort of creature that can protect her. However, for some reason, her Demon Snow ability can only be activated and controlled via a phone call from somebody else. Like, her cell phone is the intermediary for her ability. But while Atsushi is busy getting his ass grasped by...
My only question for that ability is, do you just have to be on the phone, or does somebody have to be like, yo, can you crash out for me? He crashed out for me.
My girl Yosano is getting repeatedly lit the fuck up by lemon bombs, and so... yeah, shit is starting to look real wicked for our Armed Detective Agency representatives right now. Now, the Yosano fight is particularly interesting because both Yosano and Kaiji are doctors, or scientists rather. Like, they both have occupations that are scientific in nature. Midway through the fight, after Yosano's been thoroughly air-fried, Kaiji starts going on this very one-sided philosophical tangent about how death is the ultimate science and blah, blah, blah. Just mad science, anime villain type ideals. Yosano isn't buying Kaiji's anime villain bullshit though, right? Like, as a doctor, she's come face to face with death time and time again in the form of her patients dying / almost dying, and so Yeah, she's really not trying to hear Kaiji's callous, overzealous, quite frankly detached takes on death. Kaiji's like, fine, you don't want to hear my takes on death? Then how about you go experience it for yourself and come report back to me? He then proceeds to drop like 10 lemon bombs all around Yosano and leave the train car before they explode. And so, yeah, that's not good. Cut back to Atsushi, and he too is also on the verge of death. His body has now been lacerated to shreds by the specter that Kyoka has attacking him. And based on the fact that he's too weak to actually do anything against Kyoka's stand, it's starting to look like all hope might be lost for our rookie detective. Fortunately for Atsushi, even when all hope is lost, all flashbacks aren't. And so by calling upon the power of yet another flashback to the orphanage, Atsushi gains an anime flashback plot armor boost, and his Were-Tiger ability activates, enabling him to fight back against Kyoka. Now let's cut back to Yosano again, see what's going on over there with her. Kaiji re-enters the train car that he blew up, expecting to see Yosano, well, dead. I mean, 7 fucking grenade explosives versus the physiology of an average-sized Japanese adult woman. Yeah, I don't think I have to elaborate on the mismatch that's occurring here. Yosano's body is literally hanging out the window of the train car, having damn near been blown out of the train itself. But as Kaiji comes closer to inspect what he thinks is a corpse, Yosano suddenly springs to life and decks this nigga Kaiji dead in his shit, sending the man flying across.
Is he gonna go out of the train?
Amazing punch.
Yo, that
check out that follow through. But come to find out, Yosano's ability, Thou Shall Not Die, does... well, it does exactly what it sounds like it does. It saves people from dying by healing them back into working order. The ability does have a condition, though. This condition being that she can only heal lethal injuries. So basically, in order to heal people, herself included, the target has to be on the brink of death. This means that if there's a situation where Yosano wants to heal a mild to moderate injury, she actually has to inflict a life-threatening injury on her target for her ability to work. And as Kaiji is about to find out, Yosano is very fond of the process that is inflicting lethal injuries. Like, she takes great
my
pleasure in
gosh.
so,
No, that's not even... The sword is bigger than the bag. That shit is always comedy. The sword is literally bigger than the bag. Come on now. Girl, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm good. Just kill me. I'm okay. 24 years, that's enough living. Oh my gosh.
Seems to be a very sadist, dominatrix, BDSM-like manner. Basically the same thing that she had done with Tanizaki earlier. Atsushi, now armed with the means to fight back against Kyoka via the Were-Tiger, goes on the offensive, dodging Demon Snow's attacks before literally breaking the sword that it's using to attack him. How is that fair? But once the sword is broken, Atsushi speed blitzes Kyoka, stopping right before his claws hit her throat. He's basically holding the girl at claw point, deciding to spare her despite the fact that she was just trying to kill him moments earlier. When Kyoka realizes that she's lost the fight, she decides to start anime monologuing about her tragic backstory. She's like, my name is Kyoka Izumi, and I've killed 35 people for the Port Mafia. She suddenly pulls down part of her kimono, revealing a bomb that she has strapped to her chest. Basically, the Port Mafia had a contingency plan in the case that Kyoka failed the mission. That contingency plan being, well, as evidenced by the bomb vest that she's wearing to blow her the fuck.
What if those bombs were just lemon-shaped?
Atsushi turns on his anime MC Talk No Jutsu. He's like, Kyoka, you don't have to do this. Hand me the detonator. And Kyoka, to my surprise, is just like, alright, say less. And she just like casually hands him the detonator. Now at this point, I'm thinking W Atsushi, right? Like he saved the day, he saved the girl. But Atsushi's dumbass proceeds to press the detonator button, thinking that it's the disarm button. And after pressing the button, Kyoka's vest suddenly sparks to life, leaving the two of them with only a few seconds until Kyoka sees everyone that's on that train dap up Roku's in heaven. Kyoka pushes herself away from Atsushi, and she jumps out the train before the vest can kill any innocents. But Atsushi, being the anime MC that he is like, nah, Kyoka, let me show you how this plot armor works. And he proceeds to
plot armor.
Golden Ghouls Drag Show, Hagerstown, Maryland, Asbury Park, New Jersey, Newport.
Yo, this is kind of what? So, hold on. This is the first ad I'm kind of... Where is this coming from? Okay.
Golden his Were-Tiger legs and jump out of the train to Kyoka, ripping the vest off of her just before it detonates. We get a look at Atsushi and Kyoka a few minutes later after they fish themselves out of the body of water that they fell into, and luckily, they're both alive and well. Or at least they're both alive. I don't really know about well.
Yeah,
in
well
Atsushi's
is
case. But then we
you
finally
can
cut
always
to the
fall
other end
down
of the
like
phone
that.
line where we see who was giving the commands to Kyoka over the phone all that time. And sure enough, it's none other than Ryunosuke Atagawa. His emo ass just, I don't know, being weird, locked up in the basement.
This guy really
somewhere,
supposed
talking
to be
little
like
girls on the phone like, dog, she is 14 and you're 20.
We'll get
now
there
I
when
see
we
why
get
your
there.
ass was on that wanted poster in the police station at the beginning of the season. Strange ass nigga, disgusting. The next day, Kyoka is taken into Armed Detective Agency custody so that Dr. Yosano can treat any injuries that she may have sustained from the train incident. I'm gonna assume that Yosano didn't have to use her ability on the girl based on the fact that Kyoka doesn't seem traumatized while laying in the infirmary. But while Kyoka is laying down in bed, getting some rest, Atsushi and Kunikita are outside the infirmary, talking about the girl's fate as it relates to the Armed Detective Agency. Kunikita is like, look man, I understand you care about this girl, but let's just keep it a buck right now. She's got like 35 bodies under her belt. There's no way the Armed Detective Agency can take her in good faith. Atsushi responds, he's like, but it's not her fault. The Port Mafia has been extorting her and her ability so that she commits these murders. And Kunikita's like, yeah, I get that, but at the end of the day, in the eyes of the law, the blood of these murders is still at least partially on her hands. And when you're talking big boy numbers like 35 partial murders, yeah bro, we simply can't let that slide. Like, what would the detective agency look like housing someone who, for all intents and purposes, is essentially a serial killer at this point? The two detectives debate about what exactly to do with Kyoka is cut off by Dr. Yosano, who lets them know that Kyoka seems fine. And when Kunikita asks Yosano if Kyoka is good for questioning, Yosano gives them the green light, saying that she should be in a good enough physical/mental state for questioning. The two detectives go into the infirmary to question Kyoka, interrogating her about who her superior was within the Port Mafia. And although Kyoka seems reluctant to snitch at first, as per usual, a little bit of ease go a long way when it comes to getting felons to snitch on their higher-ups. And so boom, they get Kyoka this nice little tofu lunch, with seconds by the way, in order to get her to open up about her ties to the Port Mafia. Kyoka goes on to explain to Atsushi and Kunikita everything that I already explained to you a little while ago regarding her backstory and her ability. She also explains that the person giving her commands through the phone was Atagawa, and yeah, after hearing this, Kunikita gets up so that he can go back to the agency to write a report on what he just learned. Before leaving, Kunikita pulls Atsushi outside. He's like, look, while I'm gone, I need you to take that girl to the police station. And Atsushi's like, hold on, bruh. If we turn her in, like, they're finna execute her, bro. Like, she's not gonna be able to lawyer her way out of 35 bodies. Kunikita gives Atsushi a serious glare before explaining to him that although compassion and empathy are great qualities to have, in situations like this one, they will only hold him back from doing what needs to be done. He tells Atsushi that if he wants to continue to be an armed detective...
No, I don't like this. I'm 90% sure they're still going to take her in, but that's a bad judgment call because the situation in which she was in to where she had to commit to those bodies in order to stay alive, you know, there's some weight to be held there. Just to be like straight up, we're just going to throw out to the wolves. Seems kind of whack to me. But we'll see what they're going to do with this.
He'll have to be able to make the tough decisions like this one. And without another word, he heads off, leaving Atsushi alone with his thoughts. Before long, Atsushi and Kyoka set off to the police station. Of course, Atsushi doesn't tell Kyoka that he's planning on turning her in, but yeah, that's still the plan, regardless of how he feels about it. When Kyoka does finally ask him where they're going, Atsushi, being the empathetic guy that he is, doesn't really have it in him to say that he's turning her in. And so long story short, Atsushi's lack of initiative to take Kyoka to the police station actually leads to them going on a day-long outing to all of these different places that Kyoka
that's gonna
wanted to
make it
visit
hurt
in
even
Yokohama.
more.
After she's had her fair share of fun for the day, Kyoka actually walks herself to the police station. Turns out, Kyoka knew that they were headed to the police station this entire time, and she only dragged Atsushi to all these different sites in Yokohama because she wanted to enjoy one last day of freedom before she went to turn herself in for her crimes. The girl is like, look bro, your homeboy with the rat tail was low-key right. I've killed 35 people over the past few months. It's really only fair that I, too, be executed. But before Atsushi could respond, a giant black shard stabs him through the chest, seemingly out of nowhere.
There goes that
the
plot.
Mafia had hidden a transmitter somewhere in Kyoka's body that they were using to track her
in
every
her
move.
body?
And as Atagawa uses his Rashomon to lift Atsushi into the air, he explains to the girl that the only reason he had let her roam free for this long is so that she could lead him to the were-tiger. He then proceeds to throw Atsushi into a cargo crate, and the Port Mafia takes off to...
Are they going to end the
Once reports
season
of
like
Atsushi's
this?
kidnapping hit the agency, the other detectives start arguing about to what extent they should prioritize rescuing Atsushi. You see, at the moment, the detective agency is dealing with Dazai being MIA, Atsushi being kidnapped, and this really big government escort job that we don't get many details on besides the fact that it's super important. And so half the agency, namely Rampo and Kunekita, are like, hey, it's Atsushi's fault for not going straight to the police station. We can find him later. The other half of the agency, on the other hand, namely Tanizaki and Naomi, are like, nah, that's our teammate. We should go look for him because he would do the same for us. And even though Kunekita and Rampo aren't trying to hear their underling's opinion at first, once the president pulls up echoing their same sentiment, the rest of the detective agency locks in with finding Atsushi, out of respect for the president's word, if nothing else. The first thing the agency does is consult with their resident plot device in order to find out where exactly Atsushi is at the given moment. And Rampo is able to deduce that Atsushi is currently alive on a cargo ship that's headed out to open sea at 25 miles per hour. Again, how the fuck he was able to deduce this from a mere picture of Atsushi's cargo crate is beyond me. But we cut to this cargo ship that Rampo had asserted Atsushi could be found on, and sure enough, as deduced, Atsushi is currently on the deck of the cargo ship, getting that Rashomon belt to his ass. Kyoka tries to pull up on Atagawa with the Blixter in order to protect Atsushi, but Atagawa hard counters her gun by splitting it in half before proceeding to grab the girl by the neck and start anime monologuing about his tragic backstory having grown up in the trenches. Atsushi is like, shit, nigga, we can go backstory for backstory. He starts flashing back to his own tragic past. But this time, as he's flashing back, he gets interrupted by Kunekita, who had pulled up on a speedboat to come rescue.
He said what, bro? He said, actually, my nigga, that was gay as a bitch, yo. I said, yo, I'm glad that you said that shit yourself, my nigga.
Said my fault, yo.
Upon hearing Kunekita's voice, Kyoka suddenly clicks a detonator that was in her hand, and a bunch of bombs go off in the ship's hull. I swear, accessing high-powered explosives in the Bungo-verse has to be easier than accessing a bag of chips at the gas station. But as the explosions are going off all over the ship, Atsushi proceeds to use the explosions as cover so that he can escape to Kunekita's speedboat. Now, at this point, Atsushi is just one good jump away from being saved, right? All he has to do is jump down to Kunekita so that he can get the fuck out of there. But just before the boy jumps, Atsushi remembers the terms to his anime MC 360 deal he signed to get his own show. And part of that 360 deal mandates that he risk his life to save anybody that's in need, especially if said person in need is a friend, and especially if said friend is a potential love interest, like Kyoka. Seeing no other choice but to save Kyoka, Atsushi pulls up on Atagawa once more and proceeds to
to you, my nigga. I be feeling fucking useless, bro. I swear to God, Dwayne.
Bro, once all the... Bro, you see that check. No, I woke up and
the best check, bro. It be some good-ass checks.
I was trying to stay up to see the check so I could, like, do something with it. I woke up. It was, like, 9:30. All that was left was enough for rent. Everything else is automatic.
Yeah, like, literally, nigga woke up, and I be trying to do the same thing. I want to see exactly what I have when that shit hit.
At least.
Fell asleep, woke up, $89. I said, no fucking way, bro. I said, yo, I just worked the whole week to have $89, my nigga.
That junk is crazy.
I said, are you fucking kidding me?
Bro. Yeah, I don't know, bro. That should just be crazy.
I don't see how they be expecting niggas to make it.
Bro, Hopefully one we gonna see, bro.
Where Tiger squabbles, this time fighting with both his life and Kyoka's life on the line, as Atsushi and his now certified nemesis are going back and forth. We get a brief glimpse into why Octagawa's big grown ass seems to hold such contempt for this 15-year-old minor who really has nothing to do with him. And come to find out, Octagawa was actually Dazai's pupil back during his Port Mafia days. And so not only does Octagawa feel betrayed by Dazai, he also feels envy towards Atsushi, who has now replaced him as Dazai's current mentee. Octagawa's hate for Atsushi is so visceral and overblown, in fact, that he actually manages to land multiple should-be fatal blows on Atsushi as their fight rages on. But by spending every last plot armor token that he has to his name, Atsushi manages to survive the should-be fatal attacks before proceeding to one-shot Octagawa, sending him plummeting into the sea below them. Atsushi then proceeds to land back on the cargo ship, unconscious from the level of main character bullshit that he had just pulled. And just before the cargo ship explodes, Hyoka grabs Atsushi and saves him from the explosion in the same way that he had saved her just a day prior, jumping overboard and onto Kunakita's speedboat, leaving even the ever-stoic Kunakita smiling at the display of compassion he just witnessed.
That was hard. Damn. Clutch. Oh my gosh. Trapped in school for what is that, years? No thanks. I'm good off of that. Oh my gosh, that would make me want to Dazai. Dazai, that's actually kind of funny. Yeah. But yeah, shout out Teddy Slump. This was cool. I'm definitely gonna watch this eventually. I just gotta stop procrastinating. But now that I have like a new type of whatchamacallit. What am I looking for, bruh? I'm kind of gone, y'all. But yeah, I'm gonna tap in with this for sure. If y'all like the video, y'all know what to do. Like the video and all that. Subscribe if you're new. All we do is chill over here. Let me know what y'all want me to react to next. And with that being said, y'all be great. Y'all be safe. Keep getting to that bag, and I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. Peace.